What's up, everyone? Welcome to the very first episode of Loud with Loub. This is a podcast where I'll be interviewing artists, musicians, filmmakers, actors, talking about their creative process and all the projects that they've been working on. This first interview I've got with a good friend, Jack Geise. We met back in high school, did some theater, did some choir together. He recently just released his first feature film, Seven Conversations at Mill Race Park, which debuted about a month ago. He's been involved with film for several years now. He's been in several bands, including Sidewalks and Every Line. He's been interested in all sorts of art, entertainment, music, filmmaking, and he's just an overall really great guy. I really hope you enjoy my interview with Jack Geise.
And
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I just got really distracted before. Watch this. This is funny. So like when you make like a stupid comment, I'm gonna be like, wait.
Wait, do you have different camera angles on this? What?
Three camera setup.
That's incredible.
Previous to this, I got this. Well, I've had this like LED light. It's this right here.
Okay.
It's like a ring light. Very
standard.
Yeah. I was like, what if I wanted to make it colors without having to buy a bunch of stuff? And so I've been painting wax paper.
Oh, wow.
And then putting it over it to varying degrees of success.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun regardless.
That's great. Can you just introduce yourself for the folks at home? How would you describe yourself? Filmmaker, artist, musician?
So I'm Jack Geise. I am turning 20 in 5 days, Sunday. And yeah, I guess primarily I would say artist is like the best way to sum it all up. I go through phases where I really focus in on one medium, but really all of them between like filmmaking, music making, writing, painting, dance. I don't do much dance myself, but I'm fascinated with it.
Yeah.
Sculpture for sure, architecture a little bit, installation. I'm fascinated by pretty much every artistic medium and try to spend at least a little bit of time working in every one. Most recently, it's been a heavy film emphasis.
Yeah.
But again, like they all inform each other. And the great part about it for me is like, as soon as I start to get tired in one thing, I can move on to the next. And it's like that passion is reignited each time.
Awesome. So let's walk through the timeline here. How did you start getting involved with filmmaking?
So I got a camera in like 8th grade, I believe, around Christmas. And I might have been interested in making movies previous to that. I've always loved movies. My dad, like that, we've always watched movies together. So that's definitely been like, that was kind of a gateway in. But around 8th grade, I got a camera and I began just making like short videos that were essentially just like exercises in cinematography. Like no plot at all. It'd just be like, oh, I'm going on a hike, I'll make a short video about it. And it'll be mostly just leaves and trees. And many shots of my feet walking. I love that shot. Always have.
Yeah.
And I think I was into pictures, like taking photos before then. But of course it's like, why stop there? And I love how you can like capture movement. So that's wonderful. And then freshman year, La La Land, I saw the previews for that. And that was like the first time that I was ever excited for a movie, aside from like Marvel movies, which were exciting as like cultural events. But this was the first time that I was like excited for a movie as like a piece of art. Saw La La Land, loved it. It was my favorite movie for a long time. And so after that, I got into like, again, it's that like pendulum swinging. And so I got really into like music and musicals and movie musicals after that. But the interest in film remained.
Let's go back to sort of your slice of life videos, sledding, Marco Island, Pop Pop's Workshop, all those. So what were some of the biggest lessons you learned from those kind of films?
A big thing was just like compositions. Very early on, that's one of the things that I was most fascinated with, is like, because a lot of these things I was not directing the actions. I couldn't direct these actions if I wanted to.
Yeah.
Especially like my brothers, as whatever 3 and 5 years old, trying to, there's no way I could get them to move in any way that I wanted them to. So I think a big thing was like finding the framings that I liked from what was already happening. And again, like with the fact that these things were just like processes that were out of my control to some degree, I think I learned how to make those decisions rather quickly.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, as such, a lot of those early ones I look back on and I'm like, oh, that's not a very pretty shot. But other times, like, I do quite like it. And so I think that that's something that I definitely picked up and have kept in mind in terms of just like how I like to use images to tell stories. So
Yeah.
framing, final answer.
All about framing.
Yeah.
So you were making these slice of life videos, you're doing sidewalks, you're doing all sorts of stuff. Then college decision time comes around. What inspired you to originally go to Fordham to study film and video?
New York City. It's a wonderful place for artists, period. Just like the opportunities are numerous, and even more so is like just the ability to be surrounded by artists. So that was definitely a huge part, and maybe like the biggest part. I also was a little bit more focused on film at the time, and I don't think that I had realized the extent to which my process was all about kind of moving from one thing to the other. And so at the time it was like, I can go all in on film and that'll be great. But then like halfway through the summer, it was like I was obsessed with painting. And not that like I wouldn't be able to take classes, but it's then getting to the point where it's like, did I make the right decision about that? I was all in about film, and New York City sounded wonderful. And the school is a great school for film, and the fact that it's in New York City, of course.
Yeah. Quarantine hits. A few months into quarantine, you start up a brand new Instagram page called Jack Daily Funny. Can you talk to me about your motive for starting that up, and what exactly it is for the people who might not know?
It's one of my funniest starts to any project. It ended up being like a very long-term thing. We're in a group chat trying to plan a concert for the end of that summer, because we both had some music that we wanted to share with people and all that. And in that group chat, Jack Hottie said something funny.
Yeah.
And then I said, like, that's Jack Daily Funny. And then I think it was like Nick Carn that was like, you better like copyright that before somebody else takes it. And I was like, all right, ha ha ha. Yeah. And so the very first Jack Daily Funny was just me saying like a stupid joke. What's up, guys? So there's this concept in ancient Greek plays that Dwayne Johnson will come out at the end of the play, basically like not having been in it before, and just fix all the problems that had been set up in the play. And it's called Deus Ex Machina. But after that, it was just like, why not? Let's do this. Yeah. Let's do this. Yeah, so Jack Daily Funny is a project that I started around June, I believe. Not this most recent summer, but the summer before, the COVID summer. I was interning with this video production company, and we were on our lunch break. So I was just sitting in my car. That's where the first one was. And then after that, I started spending different amounts of time making these Instagram videos, which again, because they're Instagram videos, they're all almost under a minute long with some exceptions. But yeah, I did everything from stupid jokes to like short skits to little musical type things. It became a very exciting way for me to be creating continuously. Like I do need those like deadlines and such. Otherwise, I get into like a perfectionist mindset where I just won't put anything out till it's like perfect, which never happened.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so how was it like trying to come up with these ideas day after day? I mean, I'm sure there were days where you're like, it's like 11:30 p.m. and you're like, I have half an hour to post something and I have no idea what to do.
Yeah. Those were the days where we went a little absurd in the comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there were some days where it was like either I thought of something previously and like written it down, or something had just popped in my head and I was like, I can make this. Um, a lot of times it would be like some situation that I was in, and then I like would realize like, oh, that's pretty funny. I could exaggerate this a little. There's a little satire, but yeah, there were definitely days where it was like 11:30 or later, and I'd be like, oh gosh, like, there's no way I'm putting on a funny.
Yeah.
But I would make a little video. It at times it was just like a pun,
Yeah.
but it never says like what quality of funny it has to be. It's just a funny.
Yeah.
Like I distinctly remember there was one day where I knew the kind of like thing that I wanted to do. And typically when you're filming like a skit where you're playing multiple people, the most efficient and like smart way to do this is like you film yourself from different angles, but you film like all the things you're saying from one angle first and all the things, and you just edit them together. And it can be very short. Like I did that with some of the later ones. But at first my idea was like, I'm going to do this all within Instagram's app, and there's no editing like that within the
Yeah.
app. You just have to do clip, then clip, then clip, then clip. And so I remember that there was one day where I parked in like behind Regal Cinema. I wanted to do a sketch where I was in the front seat and then there was another me in the back seat. And so I kept climbing from the front seat to the back seat, just back and forth.
Yeah.
And it was like legitimately like an hour of me climbing back and forth
Yeah.
for this minute-long video that ended up being like a dumb product placement for Orange Vanilla Coke.
Did you have any
So
people like watching you? Just kind of like
there
staring with some
were
binoculars, like, what's this guy doing? Climbing back and forth for an hour.
yeah, there were some like workers from like the handles or whatever, kind of on the other side, who definitely saw me. Because at first I was like getting out of the car each time.
Yeah.
And that's an effort to not like be seen as totally insane. I just started climbing, which
Yeah.
probably didn't help the image.
Probably even worse, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and the thing was, since I wasn't opening the car doors, it kept like steaming up. I was like, this doesn't look
Oh,
good either.
yeah.
There's no win with that, but
Yeah.
it was a great learning experience.
So you mentioned Orange Vanilla Coke. That's perhaps the most well-known running gag from your Jack Daly Funny days.
Once you're there, he'll direct you to buy one thing. What thing? A Coke. Like cocaine? An orange vanilla Coke.
How did that come to be? Why? What's the origin there?
So Orange Vanilla Coke, I've been like a moderate enjoyer for a couple years. It would be like when we were on like a road trip to like Pennsylvania, and it was like 11 p.m., getting kind of tired, but I still needed to drive. I'd get an orange Coke. I love like the dreamsicle type flavor, always have. And I feel like the drink it's pretty solid. I think that video with the in the Regal Cinema, that might have been the first one where I was like, it'd be like I love when like people do like those like fake product placements, like where it's just like terribly obvious and just like totally not like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I find those really funny, and so I did that once, and I can't remember if there was any sort of like positive reception to it being orange vanilla Coke, but I still had the bottle. Like I just didn't throw it away yet, and so it just kept popping up.
Yeah.
In my mind, at some points, it became too much of a crutch. Like where
Mhm.
if I didn't know how to end a sketch, I could just go into a product placement.
Yeah.
There's worse crutches. I still think it's pretty funny in most cases. And I do really like how it became like a running gag.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't something I planned.
So I think a lot of people underestimate the importance of quantity over quality, because especially in terms of filmmaking, like you've had your hand in so many cookie jars, basically. You started with those slice of life videos, then you're doing all these daily funnies. Then I found something on your link tree called Every Line. Can you describe exactly what it was? I saw like some poems, some audios, like a short like video or two. What exactly is that?
Jack, this is like the debut of something that I've been working on for a long time. So another thing that I've been fascinated in is the internet in general. Like it's hard not to be, but also like different ways in which the internet can be used as like a storytelling device. Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, who I think is a genius, he has that album Because the Internet. It's a very like multimedia thing.
Yeah.
Like not only is it the album, he wrote a like 72-page script or something that goes along with the album.
Oh wow.
And the like music videos like play their own part in the story. And then there's all these like websites that like show other aspects of it. So multimedia storytelling is fascinating to me because I think that there's a certain like effect that like breaking that barrier between real life and then like the artistic. Yeah, so I was fascinated in like the process of making a website, and I love the look of like, as you saw, like the website is, it looks very like unfinished.
Mhm.
It is unfinished, but it also is like supposed to look very like
Yeah.
super super simple. Like there's no design choices besides the black text on white background. What I originally conceived for everyline.net was that it would be like this, essentially like an open journal where I would be posting everything that I wrote, like little ideas that I had musically, photos and such, and in something of an effort to create this like whole world of these different artistic pieces that in some way come together to produce a portrait of some aspect of me. I'm fascinated as well by the sort of asymptotic relationship between art and reality. Like with a documentary, for instance, you can film somebody talking for 2 hours, you know, but you're not getting a full picture of them in any way. Like you're getting a very limited picture, actually. It's almost like the minute that you start trying to record somebody, the less and less you're actually getting about. Maybe not the less and less, because I think that you can get closer, but you can never reach like a true person.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
a person is so much deeper, an event is so much deeper than any hope of trying to record it. I mean, it's like a history book. Like you're necessarily reducing an event down in such a significant way.
Mhm.
And so is the same with documentary. And that's not at all to say that like documentary isn't important, because I think it is. Like I love, there's some amazing documentaries.
Yeah.
But I think it's critical to recognize like this is telling a part of that story.
Yeah.
But it is a very small part. And so, and it's the same with all art. Like I'm trying to capture, well, like I mean, you can take like those slice of life videos. Like I'm trying to capture the feelings and experiences and like what I saw in those like daily life type things. But it's like 2 minutes can't hope to reach the depths of how a soul processes all that stuff.
Yeah.
All that to say, the website is or was conceived in that sort of idea of like putting together some picture of myself, like a self-portrait using all these different forms of expression.
What are your thoughts on like machines trying to like recreate the human brain and stuff like that? So you're saying that you think we'll never get to that point because there's like this unattainable gap that you can't jump over to like fully establish an experience.
I think that machines and like AI and all that are incredible tools, and like there's some AI like painting type stuff
Yeah.
that is truly incredible. And I think all of that is to say like I don't think that AI can judge whether or not like a painting is good or
Mhm.
it's like meaningful. I don't think that an AI can make a meaningful piece of art. A good part of taking in art is what you also put into it.
Yeah.
Which is why like you read a book 10 years ago, you get something out of it, you read it now and it's like a totally different experience, or it can be.
Mhm.
Because it's not this like stagnant thing, it's changing with us. And so I think that there is potential for AI and machines and stuff to create things that then we give meaning. But that's not to say that like all meaning is just like given by people.
Yeah.
This is a very delicate thing, but
Yeah.
basically I agree with your assessment on
Because
like machines not being able to.
yeah, because there's these like algorithms now where you can feed it like a YouTuber's videos or an artist's songs or something like that, and it will come up with like a recreation of that in its own way. And usually not great, but I mean, in the future, I mean, we might see it just getting closer and closer to that asymptotic relationship that you were talking about. Yeah, I'm pretty fascinated by that.
Absolutely, I think it's something to watch. And again, like I don't agree with like some people who I think are so quick to like just want to like shut everything down that has to do
Mhm.
with that, because I think it is like an impressive piece of technology that then we can use to then further create new things. I think that the tendency of some to like say that like it can replace human art is, I just don't think that doesn't quite sit right with me.
Yeah.
I feel like there is something that's distinctly human that we can't like recreate.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we've gone down a rabbit hole. Let's get back on track. So you just released your very first feature film, as far as I'm aware, first feature.
yes.
What was your inspiration for Seven Conversations at Mill Race Park?
I don't really know how to say this, but we're moving in a couple of weeks.
Why? Over the last semester, I was watching a lot of movies. Part of that, I got into like this phase of like kind of like the mumblecore genre.
Mhm.
But basically like Noah Baumbach, Greta Gerwig, of course, a little bit of Richard Linklater. But it's just like this genre that's very centered around like people talking being
Mhm.
like the main event. And one specific one, Kicking and Screaming by Noah Baumbach. It was his debut movie, and it's one of my favorites by him. It's literally just like these post, like they're just got out of an undergrad college, geez, and they're trying to figure out like what they want to do with their lives. But most of it is just them talking about like stupid things. I love that stuff. Well, I don't know. There's just something so special about people just talking and being wrong about a lot of things. I like to see people like misstep a lot.
Yeah.
And not like in a like ha 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 they're failing at everything, but it's a very human thing. Like I think that that's something that is so fundamentally human. Walt Stillman is another guy. Walt Stillman. Regardless, he's great.
And just to clarify, Kicking and Screaming is not the Will Ferrell soccer movie, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is a distinction that should be made.
Yeah.
Different.
Fantastic movie in its own regard. It's definitely a masterpiece, but
I still haven't watched it, but after watching,
highly
like,
recommend.
yeah, I gotta get on that. Maybe it's also in this shot.
Yeah. So kind of walk me through your writing process for Seven Conversations. So you came up with this idea.
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
I don't know. It came from like I very much had to like force myself to do it. I truly believe that like the hardest part is starting, and it's very cliche, but
Mhm.
it is terrifying to just have like a blank piece of paper. The writing process began because I was like watching all these movies, and I was like, I need to make something. Like I gotta. It gets to, and this typically happens. Like I just take in a bunch of things, and then it gets to the point where it's like I can't take in anything more. I need to like express this.
Yeah.
Which is fun. It's a fun back and forth. But yeah, so I started writing, and what I was keeping in mind was the fact that I knew I didn't have much to work with. I was very aware of like the budget that I would have, which was essentially nothing. And so I wanted to work with the things that I had, which meant no crazy action sequences, no cool sci-fi fantasy things. Not to say that those can't be done on low budget, but I didn't want to spend time on that stuff.
Yeah.
And again, wanting to make a movie that was primarily dialogue driven, that was good. That was a good option for like what kind of genre to do. And so my first idea was I'm going to make a documentary about myself, but it's going to be like totally scripted, like all the way through. And I sent that to my good friend Ishan, who was a co-producer on this movie, and he he thought it was a joke, which hurt, but it was like a wake-up call to like, wow, this is really like narcissistic.
Yeah, a little pretentious.
Yes, and very pretentious. Perhaps someday, but certainly that kind of woke me up as to I'm not in a place where I could write that well. It will just come off as like awful. And so the next kind of vein of like writing ideas was just, they always say like write what you know, and so I was trying to think of like different times that I've like just talked with friends that have been meaningful, and it was more about like the atmosphere of the location than the actual conversation that was happening.
Mhm.
Like that's what I was kind of going through, because again, like I'm in the mindset of I can talk about anything, or the characters can talk about anything, as long as it's in a location that is interesting and that, I don't know, means something. Which I don't know how much I ended up sticking with that, but eventually I got to the place where I was thinking about Milrace Park, which is in Columbus, Indiana, about an hour south of Carmel, and it's just a wonderful park. I had been there a couple times in the past, and actually, it's funny because the first time that I went to Columbus was because I'd seen a movie called Columbus that was about the city. So the movie inspired my visits, which inspired the movie. Yeah. So once I got there, it became clear that like I would really love for it to be like a sequence of conversations. Again, it's kind of like working with what I've got, which in terms of writing ability is not super significant at the moment. I felt like shorter conversations throughout would be easier to write than like one long conversation all the way through, like Come My Dinner with Andre type thing.
Yeah.
From there, it became a matter of like, why would this person keep coming back here? And then we've got that kind of, or like solve that problem with the first scene where it's like an emotional impact. And my original idea of having all the conversations like being very distinct, I fell away from that as I kept writing, because I realized like so much of this is just going back to this same thing, or to these same ideas at least. So, but the writing process was very hard. I would write like a couple lines of dialogue and then move to like a later scene. I did not write in order at all. So it was just very all over, and I kept editing little things throughout. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'd say one of the most difficult things about writing is making conversations sound natural. How was that trying to accomplish that?
A lot of times I would write something and try to then say it out loud and cringe the whole way through. You write something and it sounds like, when you're reading it on paper, it's like, yeah, people talk like this.
Mhm.
And you say it aloud and it's just nothing like that.
Yeah.
And even with like the various edges that I did to try to get towards that, there's still many passages in the movie where I hear it and like the actors are giving it their all. Like they're truly doing all that they can, but the dialogue just is way too stilted.
Mhm.
But I think that is something that like I'll always be working on. One thing that was very important to me when writing it, in terms of like getting naturalism, is that people, I'm doing it now, people don't know exactly what they're going to say as
Yep.
they're saying something. And so you get those like pauses or the ums and likes and all of that stuff. As well as just like adding an I don't know at the end of like somebody saying something.
Pretty
That,
powerful.
yeah. And it's, I mean, it's just like, it's like, yeah, they don't know. Which is, again, like I'm saying it out loud and that sounds super, super dumb, but it like, it makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
there is an element of just like, we're all trying to figure it out, and people are not usually as certain as like they might be in like an action movie where they're commanding against an attack of aliens. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need to put an I don't know at the end of like a attack line, but
Yeah.
but at the end of somebody trying to express themselves to somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you finally had the script ready to go. What was your next step? Did you audition all the actors, or what'd you do?
So we did no auditions.
Okay.
I was actually just talking about this earlier today. But I had a couple people in mind already. When I was writing it, I either like have somebody in mind like already, like I know this person would be perfect for this.
Mhm.
or I don't have somebody in mind, in which case it's like impossible for me to picture somebody saying those things, or at least like somebody that I know. Again, in the interest of the fact that I had no money, I could not pay these people, so I knew there was no chance of getting anybody like professional, but also I didn't really want anybody professional. So these are unpaid actors. Hopefully the Screen Actors Guild does not come after me for that.
Yeah.
Not yet. but yeah, so the couple of people that I had in mind already, I just kind of asked them, like texted them saying like, hey, this is asking a lot. Most of them were very gracious and like yeah, totally. A couple of people just couldn't because, well, the only times people like refused was because they just couldn't, like whether they were out of town or just couldn't like commit to the time, which again, like totally understandable. I did this very fast as well. Like I had finished a mostly complete draft of the script like late July, and I think, well, like mid-July, and then we shot like the last weekend of mid-June, and then we shot like at the end of June, early July. So like I was not giving people much time to like plan or anything. Granted, the shoots in general were pretty short, but like Sam Grocki, who plays the main guy, it was like 50 hours for him.
Yeah.
Which certainly added up.
So this is one of your first times, to my knowledge, having to actually direct actors. So in the past, you had all these slice of life videos that we talked about earlier, where, like you said, you were just filming what you could get. So you were working on composition. Now you have to factor in all these people to the mix. What was that like? What was your experience with that?
Very, very good. I mean, to sum it up in a word, very, very
Yeah.
good. That's 2 words.
3 words, actually.
But yeah, true. I can count. Yeah, it's always fascinating because again, it's like that idea of like, I have something in my head and I know what it looks like in my head, and now I'm bringing in these other people into the mix where they don't have exactly what I have in my head, and so I have to try to communicate with them what's in my head, but also like remaining open to what might be in their head, because my head is not the dictatorship of good ideas. Certainly is not. Yeah, so it was fascinating, like with the dialogue, for instance. That was a challenge to try to like communicate like what level of that, and like how to say like I wanted to be like you're figuring out what to say, not remembering what to say, which again, like, and like I made this very clear, like I'm asking a lot of these people who are like great friends, and they seriously killed it, and we're very, very patient, which is very good. I could not have asked for like a better cast for my first directing, because they were really amazing. Yeah, it's fascinating to see these things which have only existed in your mind and then like on words on paper come to life, and to see like the differences between what was in your mind. It's sort of like in my mind it's like this like pencil sketch, and then seeing people act, and then even more so like watching the footage back, all of a sudden it's in like vivid colors.
So you've now finished your first feature film. What's coming up in your future? Which way is the pendulum swinging?
Okay, so Interstellar is well, half kidding, because the pendulum is still on film right now. And essentially like the night after the premiere, I came back to my house and me and a friend started brainstorming for the next one. So we've got a couple of ideas, and then I was driving like a couple weeks ago, and an idea that I had for a film back in sophomore year, which is crazy because like I forgot that I was like thinking about movies then.
Yeah.
It just popped back in my head, and I think, and since then, externally, I've been like, this is the most genius movie ever. Like, this is going to be the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Internally, it's a little bit more like realistic. But I am very excited for that idea. I'll share the premise. This is an exclusive.
Ooh, hot scoop.
Yeah, so the basic premise is whether it be NASA or just some government thing, they send a group of artists to space. And as part of some initiative, get the public excited for space, get the public excited for the arts.
Yeah.
You know how the government is.
Yeah.
And then they return, and the story follows one of those artists as he attempts and struggles and suffers trying to communicate like the depths of what he experienced.
Okay.
So it has a lot more of like a momentum to it rather than 7 conversations. The genius part is it'll start like as he returns, so there's no need to show any spaceship or even space necessarily, which of course lowers the cost.
Yeah. You don't have to go to space to shoot the movie.
Exactly. Although if I ask Elon Musk very nicely, he might say yes, but
we'll see. You never know. So Jack, it's been great talking to you. Where can people find you?
So my app, on Instagram, my artistic account, which is where I've tried to put film stuff and music stuff and my other art stuff, is Jake.Geise, I believe. That's Geesee. And then my YouTube is, I believe, just Jack Geise. Maybe we can put these links in the show notes if you have.
They'll be in there. Don't worry.
But yeah, so Instagram is certainly a great place. YouTube is a great place. I don't use my TikTok very much. Yeah, I try to post updates and stuff on Instagram, and YouTube is where I'll post like full-length stuff. Everyline.net, check it out. If you want a little weird poetry video stuff. Letterbox.com. I think I'm also Jake Geise on that as well. In my Instagram bio, I have a link tree to all these things as well. And then Spotify, Everyline. I have one album up, but I have been working on more music as well. So hopefully more of that will be coming shortly. We'll see where the wind takes me. And there's a SoundCloud link in my link tree. I have a lot of places that are not as developed as I'd like, but they all provide pieces of my work.
Exactly. Perfectly imperfect.
Perfectly imperfect, I suppose.
Truly.
Jack, thanks so much for coming on. It's always great talking to you, man. And have a great year and good luck with your upcoming projects.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks again to Jack Geise for showing up and doing this interview with me. I really appreciate it. And, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. And until next time, it's a great day to have a day.